Fury in France as authorities brace for more violence. Hundreds were arrested after a third night of rioting, with anger over the fatal shooting of a teenager spreading across the country. And while streets burn, the president himself has come under fire for attending an Elton John concert. Here, the Foreign Office has issued a warning to British tourists visiting France to expect disruption as transport networks are suspended and to take care. Also tonight. The Prime Minister pledges to save the NHS. Rishi Sunak reveals his ambitious plans to train more doctors and nurses. But will it be enough to fix an ailing health service?
There's not much in there that would answer questions over how's the NHS going to get through this winter, how are you going to avoid more industrial action. It really is looking at the long term rather than now.
The actor Kevin Spacey described in court as a sexual bully at the opening of his trial in London. Is now the right time to buy? House prices drop, but the cost of borrowing soars. And
oh, what a start!
Is it already the end of England's Ashes hopes as Australia build a daunting lead at Lord's?
This is the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. French authorities are ramping up their response tonight to the wave of violence and rioting that spread across the country. Police will now use armoured vehicles to quell the growing unrest over the fatal shooting of a teenager in Paris. Nahel was shot at point-blank range by a police officer, sparking widespread protests, looting and arson. Concerts have been cancelled, bus and tram services suspended nationwide, and the president has urged parents to keep their children at home. The UK Foreign Office is warning British tourists to take care when travelling in France. Well, from Paris, here's our Europe editor, James Mates.
Night 3 in the Paris suburbs, and for all the appeals for calm, for all the deployment of 40,000 riot police, it's getting worse, not better. What started in Nanterre has spread across Paris and then across France. What started as attacks on police has now descended into widespread looting and attacks on any property that stands in their way. These are the flames of 13 burning buses at a depot in the northwest suburb of Aubervilliers. Squads from the BRI, specialist police SWAT teams, are no more able to stamp it out than their regular colleagues. Endless rounds of tear gas, pretty much their only tactics. Back early from a European summit, President Macron, met by his Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne, rushed to an emergency meeting at the Interior Ministry. There had been talk of declaring a state of emergency, but in the event, there was little new beyond an appeal for parents to keep their young people at home.
Un tiers des interpellés de la dernière nuit sont des jeunes, parfois des très jeunes.
A third of those arrested last night were young people, he said, sometimes very young. It's the parents' responsibility to keep them at home. I call on the sense of responsibility of mothers and fathers.
Des mères et des pères de famille.
But video has emerged from the night before last, as the suburbs burned, of Macron attending an Elton John concert in Paris. The imagery does not help him. The damage this morning stretched right across Paris and from Lille in the north to Marseille in the south. These, the 13 buses gutted in the inferno last night.
The violence is becoming increasingly mindless. These buses weren't used by government officials, but they were a lifeline for the local community here. It does illustrate, though, that when a population is this angry, it doesn't matter how many police you put on the streets, you can't protect everything.
And the building behind the bus depot, the facade now scarred by fire, that's an aquatic training centre still being built for next summer's Olympics. A reminder of how much is at stake for Paris if things aren't brought under control. There has been a bandwagon effect in the way these protests have spread, but with the funeral of Nahel, the dead 17-year-old, tomorrow, it is not about to be brought to a halt.
Let's go to Paris now. James, you say it doesn't look like the violence is declining. How serious is this warning to British tourists now from the Foreign Office?
Well, it's not one of those travel warnings that says don't travel there. It's warnings about things to look out for when you get there, if you do travel. Not really anything that'll surprise anyone who's been watching the news. They say there could be disruptions to road travel. Public transport will be reduced, indeed, across the country. All buses and trams are shutting down from 9 p.m. They say there may be curfews, though there isn't one yet here in Paris. And perhaps a statement of the obvious, this: locations and timings of riots, warn the Foreign Office, are unpredictable. I can confirm that is true. Some major events have been cancelled. A big concert at the Stade de France tonight. One event that isn't being cancelled is the Tour de France, the cycle race which starts tomorrow. The first two stages happen in northern Spain. It doesn't get to France until Monday, but policing that in the current context, given how many police officers are already committed, that's going to be a major challenge.
All right, James, in Paris, thank you.